Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with Cece Armstrong, Tony Larson, and Jihyun Oh. If you didn't listen to part 1, you may want to do so before listening to this episode. In part 2, we continue our sharing about Palestine before we pivot to learning a little more about them as non-rockstar Presbyterians. Again, thanks to the series sponsors, the Palestine Justice Network and the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship. Please make sure to visit both of them online. Thanks for spending time with the Amalgamation, and I hope you enjoy part 2 of my conversation with Cece Armstrong, Tony Larson, and Jihyun Oh. My name is Bruce Reyes-Chow, and you found the Amalgamation Podcast. Each episode, I chat with inspiring humans, activists, artists, academics, and adventurers as we joyfully and courageously co-conspire to make the world a more loving, compassionate, and just home for everyone. Welcome to the Amalgamation. So others, military connection that you saw, things you noticed.
Well, those experiences were re-triggering and traumatizing for me, especially with how things are done with persons of color in the South on a regular basis. And, driving while Black is such a crime, that kind of stuff. So all of that was very triggering for me. But one of the things that I noticed that just caused my whole spirit to be deflated was that there were military dressed individuals. And I think in conversation with Omar, there was told that every young person had to attend a year or so or something like that, be a part of the military. That's just how it is. That's everybody has to do it. But alongside them were individuals who were not military, dressed as military, and had like major
AK-47s. Yep.
Yeah. And all I could think in those moments were, if you just feel like shooting anybody, you just could. Mm-hmm. Like there was no military code for that. There was room for just rogue folks to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And of course, when I'm thinking and seeing this action, I'm also now just kind of looking back at the States and how all of a sudden, anyone can be a part of ICE. Mm-hmm. That's right here, and how they can just be rogue. And so, that's all still very triggering for me.
Yeah. And young, right? We're looking at some of these soldiers and they're babies. I'm an old man, so I guess they're babies.
Right. And male and female. And so some of the, in my own attempt to soothe myself and pacify myself, I would talk to myself, but I was talking to the child person. So I saw this one young lady and I kept saying, "Girl, you too pretty for this. Why? Don't do this. You shouldn't be here. You're so pretty." I'm just whatever but it was helping me kind of calm down, because what else were we going to be able to do other than just witness it and see
you felt, when I go, it's like you have no power, right? When you're there, the power is completely theirs. And our passports in some places kind of protect us, but that's even getting less. But if you're a Palestinian, you just know that anything could happen and there's going to be no ramifications. And so you just are like, okay, this is because they can. Yeah. Jen, anything about you? Did you see a lot of military while you were there?
Yeah, I think, we saw folks who were right at the checkpoints, and then at the sort of encounter with a younger group of folks who were just passing through, doing shift change, right, standing at stations, and that sort of thing. But it was really, it was interesting because there were certain places where we went, and I guess maybe this was actually like a little glimmer of hope in the midst of all of it. But, the Palestinian guide, the driver who was with us would say, "Oh, it's a really good sign that person actually spoke Arabic to me," right? That military person actually spoke to me in Arabic and, had learned it, and instead of actually, making us speak Hebrew and stuff like that. And so there were these individuals really, right, who are trying to connect across these real divisions, but really the rest of it really was, right, this really divided way of living, and young people actually conscripted, right, for mandatory service for, to try to enforce all of that, and really then forming them in that process. And also I think there were places where I thought, well, like there could be more life here, but I think because of the ways that you've actually set up these blockades and these, other physical barriers, not just people, but physical barriers as part of that sort of military way of right being in this space, that actually created these places that were eerily quiet in places,
Yeah.
and really devoid of life. And that was also really striking, right? And then also watching then the police force, speaking, Cece, about some of the sort of right parallels in terms of, and I think the ongoing conversation in our country about, right, are there ways in which the police actually see themselves as paramilitary units?
Yeah.
There was a huge traffic jam at one point wherever we were. And as soon as our driver made a turn, because we were late for a meeting, but he had been in a center lane, but he had sort of done all the signaling and whatever, actually turned out of the middle lane to turn right to actually drop us off. And all of a sudden the police show up and then pull him over, give him a huge fine, but question him and detain him for a while. And he just tells us, like, you all go. And we're like, no, we don't feel okay leaving you here by yourself. And he was like, it's fine. You all should go. You're late for your meeting. And we're like, no, we feel that we should maybe remain here to be a witness to whatever is happening. And he's like, no, go. And we saw him the next day, and like he had been, given this huge fine, but they had been there not doing anything about the traffic. So clearly this isn't about, right, sort of order in that moment, or actually like, right, aiding with civilian life. But they were really quick to pull over a taxi driver who was Palestinian, right? So
because they can, right?
Because they can, right? But they were not doing a public service by leaving us all stuck in that traffic jam when they could have done something.
Right.
Well, as we were in Hebron, as we were walking around to find a different checkpoint, we got stopped by soldiers and made to present our passports, and our guide from Sabeel, Omar, then looked down and saw that there was a bullet on the sidewalk, and then felt the need to make sure that the soldier knew that there was a bullet there and it wasn't ours. And his response was, "No, we have plenty of bullets." Just there was an edge of kind of humor, but there was also a tension to it. Like, this is how things get started. We walk away and then they say, "Oh, there's a bullet there," and it leads to something else. Like, just that sense of things can just be simple, or they can get complicated really quick.
Yeah. And watching our Palestinian leaders interact was, I think, it was disconcerting. It was, discombobulating for Americans to watch this, because how we might do it, or we expect them to react. I mean, that whole... Yeah, we were sitting at that checkpoint, and Omar says, "Let's play Simon Says." Now, I was not going to play Simon Says, but he just had us play in the as they're basically reminding these folks that you do not get our humanity, right? We still, you're not winning this. And so I think there is that whole bullet on the ground thing was hysterical, but it was also like, you just knew it was also edgy, because they had just got a call to check us out. Right. I mean, it was a very interesting kind of testimony. Let's talk about checkpoints. So what did you learn about them? What do you know about them? What would you tell people about them as you come back?
Don't lose your slip.
Okay, everybody, that was an inside joke, because I lost my visa slip and got us in trouble, because I didn't think they'd care, but they did. So anyway, yes, don't lose your slip if you go over there. Thank you, Cece. Yeah, I mean, you go through these checkpoints, whenever we're going to go on a day trip, we always tell people, go to the bathroom beforehand. This could be a 45-minute trip, or it could be an 8-hour trip. And, it just doesn't matter. Experiences about checkpoints. Jihyun, did you have any?
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple of things. One direct, thing, and then an indirect. So the indirect sort of impact maybe of a checkpoint was really that the day that the presiding bishop was being installed, the parade was supposed to start at a particular time, and it kept getting later and later and later. And we found out that the presiding bishop's mother, the one who was about to be installed, his mother was detained because she was coming in with a delegation and the youth band from Bichala, and they decided to just hold her there for a really long time, even though there were all the official paperwork and everything. And so we were waiting for his mother and some really important people from his community to arrive to begin the procession. And so, right, that folks, you can set a schedule, but it doesn't run that way because people might get stuck, right? For these really important events that everybody knew was happening, was actually part of this, right? This church that's really quite well known, and right, for a leader who's well known in that community in Jerusalem, and it sounded like all the paperwork and everything had been filed beforehand, and everybody followed what they were supposed to do, and they still got detained, right? And his mother's not a young person, right? And so, like, not somebody who's actually going to cause violence or any trouble, but had been, or was kept at a checkpoint. So that was one. I think another, just right, for us, the amount of time that we had to think about, right? I mean, the driver had to think about which way to go, and the information that they're constantly holding and then calculating in their brain for like which way to go in order not to get stuck, to not get turned back at a checkpoint that's just randomly closed, even though it wasn't part of an official schedule or anything, but because of various and sundry reasons. And then how much then people had to sort of go the long way around, right, to get anywhere. And I mean, right, I mean, all of that is a cost, right, for life, and like an extra burden that folks are constantly carrying, right? Yeah.
I mean, those checkpoints, for those of you that are, tracking, like, checkpoints can shut down entire villages, right? And Palestinians get in trouble for opening those gates, but other people can open them. And then, I think one of our days, somebody just said, all the checkpoints in Bethlehem's been closed off. And so folks just can't get anywhere. And the point of all of that is just to control movement, right? Is to, again, because they can. Yeah. Other checkpoint reflections, either Tony or Cece?
Well, the reason that I was strip searched was because I had chosen to wear an adult diaper because I was uncertain after being told those checkpoints can go for anywhere from, 20 minutes to 2 to 3 hours. And so in my efforts to be a good Girl Scout, it also led to being strip searched. So
yeah, like, it is that weird thing. Fear can save us sometimes, right? It can protect us, but then also sometimes the whole intent of this occupation is to instill fear and to live in fear. And so having to prepare for things, but then not prepare for things, but what's the safe level? I mean, that's just and that constant navigating and calculating that we just had to do for 10 days,
right?
And the signage, around these, it's illegal, right, for Jews to enter into this area, which is not signage that the Palestinians have put up, but is signage.
Right. It's dangerous for Israeli citizens to go in here at their own risk.
I mean, that kind of the thing, and and then trying to think about this context here, where so many neighborhoods now have gates on them, right, that people choose to live in these gated communities to sort of keep others out. But here folks are being forced to live in gated communities that are meant to gate them in, or to restrict their movement at will, and that ambiguity about who gets to decide, and do you ever get an explanation for why this is necessary, or is it just ongoing wearing you down?
Yeah. I got one more, and then I have to ask you to give a message to the church. So we hear a lot about, we see videos and everything about settlers, folks who have been at a variety of contexts, who are brought in to create settlements, homes in occupied territories. As we know, international law has said that these are illegal, but they continue to build, and there's walls being built up and all of those kind of things. What did you learn? What did you know? Were there misconceptions? What was your experience about learning about settlers while we were there?
When we were... Forgive me for not knowing the name of the place where we were, where one of the persons was murdered, right on the grounds. There was a caged tunnel, somewhat like that a family. I watched a family walk from their home to this next place. They were settlers. They were sent to live in that home and as a family. And so it was, I'm maybe projecting, but I believe it was a father, his wife, father, mother, and a child. And they were walking through that area, and the Southern hospitality that I have grown to accept and love, where even if you don't like each other, you still throw up a hand and say, hey, that didn't happen. And there was this walking, and it was, for me, watching them deliberately not encounter others while walking through just set a very tense tone for me in that space. And so settlers seem to just walk in ownership.
Yes.
Just because I can, like you said earlier, because I can, but there's this sense of ownership, and that all of you who see me walking are just flies on the wall. You just happen to be where you can see me.
Yeah. I mean, just walking around the old city, right? You're a little more aware of people that aren't going to move for you. I mean, right. Some of us are used to figuring that out in the States, but I think for some people that's not a norm, that people will move for them. But here you're like, oh, they're not moving. And you choose, right? You choose, are we bumping shoulders or am I moving out of the way?
Right.
I mean, there's this, that ownership of the space is really intense. Yeah. Other settler experiences, things you learned, misconceptions or affirmations.
I've got one. I'm gonna go get my prop for it though. I'll be right back.
There's a prop.
There's a prop.
I didn't tell people to be prop. We are in video, and there's a fourth visitor. I don't know the name of our other guest who has taken comfort on the couch.
It's either John Calvin.
No, that dog is not named John Calvin, is it?
Yeah, the cat is Martin Luther. I think the dog is Martin Luther, and the cat is John Calvin, or vice versa.
Oh my gosh, no, Tony.
Yeah,
Tony. Well, I guess for those of you who don't know the four of us, if you had to guess whose pets were going to be named after theologians, it would be Tony.
It would be Tony. Yeah.
We love you, Tony. Anyway, so let me ask, while Tony's getting props, I am now super intrigued about what is going to happen in a moment. But where did you see liberation happening? Like, where did you see resistance and liberation? It was like, oh, this is happening right here, right now. Were there moments that you felt that?
The dancer. Dance as
Hannah.
Dance as resistant. Dance as resistance. And so he taught us a dance. So y'all know I was all in my own personal heaven with being taught a dance, right? Because line dancing is my thing. And so I was like, oh, I got this. And so
yeah.
all over that. But then he danced for us.
Yes.
And after being taught what some of the dance movements, how they were formed and how they developed and why they were what they were, like there was one move that he did with his hand that just kept dropping. And he said originally that was picking pomegranates.
Yeah.
And then it turned into throwing bombs.
Throwing rocks. Yeah.
Throwing rocks. And I thought, whoa.
Yeah.
What a change. But it was dance as resistance. And that was very powerful. Lots of art as resistance.
Yes.
That was really, really good to see. And then the one artist had a jump rope on the ground. It was a living piece of art, and it was a jump rope, and there was a cylinder block. And she said, let's play. But you couldn't turn the rope for jump roping because of the block that was sitting on it. And she talked about how that's what oppression is in space. And it was such a powerful piece that she just had outside. We were at the college thing.
Yeah. Tony, we were just talking about liberation moments. I'm going to let you do and then I'll get you back to Joan. What's your prop? Now we're super intrigued.
Well, so when we went to Taipei, this Christian city from really the origins of Christianity in the West Bank, and the same day we were there, Mike Huckabee decided to be there, and there was also Roman Catholic delegation that was there, and there was all of this kind of conversation around, well, what do we do? Do we make some posters? Do we go and stand and jeer? And the response from the community was, no, please don't do that, because provoking that will there'll be repercussions for us, right? After Mike Huckabee leaves, after you leave, the settlers will come through, and as they frequently do, and maybe it's start fires, maybe it's harass, but the threat of violence, right, at the end of the day when that international presence was gone. And so that went over pretty well with our group. The other delegation was there. They were still a bit feisty. They wanted to do something, but they also, in the end, listened to the community there. And so, but just sort of sitting with that, knowing that was happening, and then the last thing we did there was we went to a distillery there, and so. The thing that I brought back from that is hopeful, that is liberative, is we happened to be there on the day that the first bottle of single malt Palestinian whiskey was available for sale, and
that's right.
And so that was my. There we go.
For those who don't know, I'm in the middle of moving. Otherwise, I could bust out my bottle too. The amount of weight we put in our luggage to bring back is kind of remarkable, because Jen, you did not get to do that on your delegation.
We did not.
But a story of somebody a couple who grew up there, who intentionally came back in order to build this business there, to do something that hadn't been done, and to do that as really an act of liberation and of hope, and to be able to be there while they're celebrating, and now have something to share with others, is to tell that story here at home. Yeah,
for sure. Jim, go ahead. What you were going to share something where you saw liberation.
Yeah. So two things, I think, sort of echoing, Cece, what you were saying, right? That art, design, architecture, right? Those things as right pathways for liberation, of spaces of liberation. I think Dar al Khalima University and that campus, I think when we stepped onto it, I think I felt it. I don't know that I've articulated it this way until this moment, that there was a different sense of lightness in that, on that campus and in that space, right? That had not been the experience of the rest of the trip. I think because that space of art as liberation, as hope, as resistance, as something bigger, a more enduring vision of something that is not yet. And there was something really joyful about that. And the collection there is amazing. I mean, the artists, the Palestinian artists who are contributing to that art space, art collection was just really, really amazing. And the work that they're doing, how they're getting recognized in different film festivals, telling the story, right, of this liberative story, and the narrative of hope and struggle. All of that, I think, was also really, really amazing. And then I think for me also, like, the spaces where we were able to break bread with one another. One of the organizations that we visited, Zugby, who was one of the international peacemakers, right, sort of set out this really amazing spread for us. And it was really this joyous space of being able to break bread together and to share and the thing that sustains life, and to be able to actually share those stories and humanity with one another. And I felt like those were two places, right, I think, spaces where I felt like that liberation was happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. Yeah, you all, I mean, I think that is for me, when you just are in spaces and they're reminding occupation that you do not get our humanity, like, and whether it's play or whether it's dance or and the subtlety of it all, you can feel it and you can just see it. But also there's this, like, I got to go on one delegation, we went to the circus, and I was like, why are we going to the circus? But it was just being humanity together, and you could just feel it in how they were training the young people and what was happening. But yeah. All right. One last question for you. Any quotes, things you heard, something that's going to stick with you? Like, is there something that you heard, saw that this is going to be the thing that you take with you from your delegation, your time there?
For me, the House of Parables.
Explain that a little bit.
So on the property there, we were in Bethlehem, right?
Taipei.
Taipei. That was in Taipei.
Yep.
While there, got a chance to visit the House of Parables, and there were customs that were strongly Palestinian customs, where these would have been the reactions of Palestinians during Jesus's time. And so we learned by walking into this home, all the parables, y'all, that we've been taught to imitate, and the story of Jesus's birth, and all in the inn, and there's no room in the inn. After the experience in that space and place, none of those sermons will ever be preached the same again.
Yep.
Tearing the roof off in order to lower the one at the foot of Christ. It was a skylight. It was already built in.
I mean, they were good friends, but, not as good as we want to say they were.
So, just all the parables, all the story, all the stories, the Christ stories, they're all, you will rewrite them with new eyes if you go and see for yourself. You will hear, see, feel the scriptures differently, having walked in those spaces and places. Like Tony said, when we went to go see Mary's tomb, there's no way.
What? Yeah. You mean the things didn't actually happen like everybody says they happened?
Oh my gosh. No, not at all. I had to sing the what is it? The Eye of the Tiger trying to come out of that tomb up the stairs in order to make it. I just and I'm taking off running and going up the steps because there was no way. It's just crazy, but worth every bit of it. And there was even a house of all nations.
Yeah.
And in the upper corner, one of the ninth corner, or one of the corners of the ceiling of the church had the United States emblem.
Mm. Yeah.
And I just found that to be crazy.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Other folks, anything that is the thing that's going to stick with you from your time?
So I've shared this in a few spaces where I've been invited to talk a little bit about my experiences, including, Presbyterian sort of mission committee meetings and things like that. But, when we were there, as we were asking about ways that we might be better partners and stand more effectively in solidarity and witness with our partners, the things that they were sort of pointing out were to remember that, yes, all rights speak for up for Palestine and the suffering that's happening there and the occupation, and also do your democracy work, right? Because that's really important, right? And do your climate justice work, because that actually is standing in solidarity with Palestinian farmers who are having to figure out how to farm when they can only get to their land once a year, maybe, right? And are trying to think about sustainable farming and feeding people and, right, having enough to eat when climate change is happening and things are harder and harder to grow. One of the groups, the Israeli organization Hamoked, actually said, well, do you all have a policy on death penalty? I said, actually, we do. There's a church that regularly brings an overture about a moratorium on the death penalty to the General Assembly whenever it sort of times out. And and they said, please do that work, because when governments like the Israeli government is trying to put in to more normalize, right, death penalty as part of their justice system, they say, well, look at the U.S. The U.S. has death penalty. And so, that should then be allowable for us too, as a democracy. And so they were asking us to think broadly about solidarity, and not just, so if folks are wondering, what could we do? What is something that we can do, even if we can't travel over there, even if we can't actually, we don't know exactly how we might actually be in solidarity. There are lots of ways that we can, right? By doing that democracy work, by doing the work of climate justice, of doing other things that might relate more globally and impacts our Palestinian siblings.
All right. Great. Thanks. Tony, what about you? What's the thing that's sticking with you?
So I'll lift up these two things. One, that that at least amongst the Palestinians that we talked with, they know who the Presbyterians are. They know who the PCUSA is. They know about our ongoing, sustained desire to be a partner there for peace, for solidarity, and for hope. And sometimes it feels like we're so far away, and in a time when it feels like we're doing a lot of managing institutional decline, and we're going, in other parts of the world, they're just really happy to know us, and really glad for our partnership and friendship, and that's always encouraging to hear. The other question that I kept asking in various spaces was, what is the presence of the American church like here broadly? Is it helpful, and we were at the Lutheran Church in the Old City, talking to somebody who works, is it with Amnesty? But yeah, and she just kind of rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, you Americans, you Americans, and your need to continue to do this theological innovation." And I don't know what it is about you Americans, if it's just the vastness of your prairies or what it is, but we're here where Christianity started, where it's been from the beginning, and we're just tending. We're tending to the sites and the places, but we're also just tending to the people, doing the things, the caring for the least of these. And you are out there inventing these things like rapture theology, and that keeps coming back to me this week as, we're in the sixth day of this war, and at some level, military leadership are telling our soldiers that this is about provoking Armageddon. This is about the rapture and the return of Jesus, and just what work we have to do theologically in the church to try to engage that conversation in a way that might help us see how unhelpful that is to the people who actually live in that place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think mine on this particular last delegation, when we were at Al-Aqsa, we had a tour guide who didn't hold anything back, and it was great. Reminded me of how many people reminded us that we are already living in authoritarianism, and that they were worried about us. And it was just, you're not sliding into it. You're already there. And I think that many of us probably trick ourselves into thinking we're sliding into something, and no. That was the one. But he said this one thing. I remember telling you that when he said that this is the cemetery of empire. This is where empire comes to die. And I will never forget that this is where empire comes to die. And was like, yep, that is what is happening. You can just feel the grasps of it. But yeah. All right. So thank you all. I'm going to shift gears a little bit as we kind of close out our time. Your last question is going to be an encouragement, a rant, or a comfort for the church. But one of the things on this podcast I like to do is to make sure that folks know that you are not just your positions, even though you three of you are big shots right now. You're not just that, and you're not just people who got to do this thing, but you're humans, complex people. And I challenge people to one-dimensionalize us by sharing a little more about it. So I have my three little bits that I do on the show. The first one is the nerdy and the niche. So you have to share something that is super nerdy, or something that is so niche that people would not know about you. Like they'd be surprised to hear this about you. So, and just remember, this is going out for the world. So, just share appropriately. All right, Cece, you're up first. Nerdy and the niche. What you got?
Nerdy. I am still working on solving the Rubik's Cube with no
Still?
So, now, granted, I could always go online and find the solution and figure it out and work it out, but I have deliberately and on purpose not done.
Are you close?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got one more layer to figure out the pattern to navigate.
So I don't know if you can tell personality. That'd be an interesting thing, personality by Rubik's Cube. So once I figured out how to just do one side of one color, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I did not need to figure out the other sides. I'm like, I could do one. That feels good enough. Yeah. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, if anybody wants to guess.
I've been working on it since 6th grade. So.
Oh my gosh. That is perseverance. You persisted. Yes. That's great. Tony, nerdy in the niche. What do you got?
The nerdy. Well, I'll just say that my my Pokemon Go game is suffering mightily during this year and a half of serving. Occasionally, I get to pick up cool new Pokestops and airports and the places I visit, but most of the time, I'm just too busy to even open it up. And so I just
sacrifices we moderators make for the church.
I just miss playing the Kalos tour. So that's the nerdy. On the niche side, something you wouldn't necessarily know about me is the very first wedding that I officiated as a pastor became the subject of an episode of Dateline, a small part of an episode of Dateline.
What?
Yeah. So if you run into me out and about in the church and we have 30 or 35 minutes and something to drink, I'll be happy to tell you that story in full.
I'm intrigued now. I'm going to send you an email later.
There's also a book that covers it, Death on Diamond Mountain. So,
yeah,
documentary coming out 2026.
There probably is a documentary at this point, but it's quite the story.
The things you learn is on this show. All right, Jen, nerdy or niche?
Nerdy, I guess. So, I mean, I guess this has been a while, but I still have this impulse. So when I was in seminary at Columbia, I think maybe it was like the middler year or something. I actually ran around to like the former engineers and scientists on campus and said, do y'all want to like start a calculus solving group, like a problem solving group? And people were like, gracious. I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that, but why do you want to do it? And I said, don't you all get tired sometimes of not ever doing anything that has a firm answer? Because we write papers like for our projects.
So you turned to calculus to do that?
I said, at least if we're solving calculus problems, we'll actually come up with like a real answer, right? And a concrete answer.
Okay, you're not helping with the model minority myth there, Jen. I failed calculus. I took one for the team, so not people wouldn't all think that all Asians were good at calculus. I did that on purpose. I'm sure that's why I did it.
I have some cousins who would actually agree with you. Yeah.
How long did this? This is hysterical. You had a calculus club, basically. No, so how long did this go on?
There was never really a good enough like sort of group there to actually do it. But I was serious for a while. Like I was like, I really need to like start a group. And like now every once in a while I'll be like, oh, I wonder if I should actually do some math.
That'd have been a hard, firm no for me. I don't know about the other two of you, if you would have been.
No, that would have been, I would have probably been right in the class.
That's right.
Right there. Yeah. That math was, that would have been something I would have just jumped right on. Like, oh, yeah.
Nope.
I
hard pass.
Loved it.
Yeah. I went into Enterprise one time to rent a car for one of these moderatorial events, and somebody had an equation on the board in the back, and they were solving it. And I kept staring at it. And I kept saying, no, that goes there. That goes there. And the lady said, ma'am, what are you talking about? Whose work is that?
For those of you that don't know, Cece was a teacher. And did you teach math?
I taught mathematics. Yeah. High school mathematics.
Nerds. Love my nerds friends. I love my nerd friends, but good Lord. While you were gone, Tony, we're also teasing about your nerddom churchiness and your pets. And that if any of the four of us were going to name our pets after old dead white theologians, it was going to be Tony.
Yeah. Martin Luther is just chilling back here. John Calvin probably won't wander in tonight.
I love it. Okay. All right. Your next thing is sights and sounds. So what are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you reading? You can do all of them. You can one of them. Just what's going on in your, and well, Tony, you're first. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you reading?
All right. So let's see. We've just been, when I'm home, we try to watch something. So the last few things we watched, got caught up on Landman. Currently we're watching Pluribus, which is, kind of wild, and then for a lighter note, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and then we did finally take the plunge into K-pop Demon Hunters, and so I've been listening to some K-pop and reading How to Hide an Empire.
Oh, there you go, from Demon Hunters to How to Hide an Empire. Okay, awesome. June, what are you listening to? Watching? What are you reading?
Yeah, so watching Percy Jackson also.
Oh my gosh.
Also Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh, yes. That's some good brain candy right there.
Yeah, so good. And also reading Decolonizing Palestine. Yes, decolonizing Palestine. And I was like, it is decolonizing Palestine.
So
right?
for those of you who don't know, we are re-recording this. We started at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So the three of them are all on East Coast time. So I'm like bubbly and I'm ready to go. And I'm looking at they're like, can we end this now? Because I'm getting sleepy. All right, Cece, watching, listening to, reading.
So kind of sort of falling back in love with Fantasia. The Disney. Because classical music has been my calm here lately. Music without words to just kind of make it. Because the prep time for all the things that we get to do has dwindled down to none. And so having to rely on my own thought of what do I remember from some other experience has been interesting. But then if I do get a chance to fall asleep in front of the TV, it's because NCIS is on continuously.
Oh, NCIS.
I love NCIS. Yeah. The propaganda is, it's terrible, but I also love it. I love NCIS. Yes.
I really like New Orleans, that particular one. That's my favorite, but I'll take the regular NCIS.
Everybody's so pretty. I just like watching pretty people on TV. That's basically, I'm just gonna own it. I'm like, is everybody beautiful? Sure. I'll just watch that. Yeah. I'll tell you. So what I'm listening to right now is I have fallen in love with the new Bruno Mars album. Oh my God. That thing is on repeat.
Really?
It is cranked up. It is everything you want from Bruno Mars. It is great. Yeah. What I'm going to start reading, I'm going on a trip tomorrow. I got the new book by Francesca Albanese, who's from the UN. And so I'm going to start reading that. And then what are we watching? We subscribe to BritBox TV. And so we are watching all these like Return to Paradise. I don't know why English TV is so much better. I don't know why. But anyway, so that's what we're watching. I'm trying to think if there's any brain can't even watch that. I don't think so. And Night Agent. That's the one I've been watching on the side.
I have not seen the new season.
Yeah, it's all excellent. Anyway, all right. Your last thing before I let you all go is this: the listeners for the church. What's your encouragement, your rant, or your comfort?
Well, my encouragement, which is also a part of my rant, and in a sense offers some comfort. So it's all of them. Train your replacement. You are not going to be here always. You will never outlast the legacy you want to leave behind. The legacy that you need to leave behind has to be placed in the hands of someone who can do something with it. So you have to train your replacement, or else whatever legacy you thought you were going to leave, it will die and be buried with you. So please, by all means, train your replacement. Quit thinking that you are the only individual capable of doing whatever gift, call, job, responsibility you have. As a session member, as a leader, ecclesiastical leader, as whatever you are, train your replacement. Please train them and then let them flourish in the gifts that they have so that things can be made better.
Amen. All right. Tony, comfort, encouragement, or rant? Or all three? Or
all three. Well, so if I had to rant, it would be I wish we Presbyterians would stop pointing out how much smaller we are and making that the first thing we say about ourselves. Because to tie it back to this trip, is clear that who we are as this flavor of the at least 36 flavors of Christianity is important. And we're peculiar, we're quirky, we're not everybody's favorite flavor, but the ways that we show up in the world really matter. And the work that we're doing does have impact. And when we stop being beholden to the image of what we once were and start focusing on who God is calling us to be and where the Spirit is leading us, I see amazing things happening all the time. And so that's the encouragement. Pay attention to the way that the Spirit is calling you and the particular place that you have been placed in the church, and follow that with boldness, and we can write new stories. We can dream new dreams with God. And my comfort is that that leaders like the four of us, that I get to serve with leaders like the three of you, and the leaders that I run into in our mid councils and in congregations, that we have just such phenomenal, gifted people in the church, including these three conversation partners tonight, and that gives me great comfort.
Great. All right, Jen.
Yeah, I think sort of echoing some of what's been said already. I think in this time, in the last few weeks, I've had conversations with people who say, for this particular age that we're living in, it almost feels like the Presbyterian Church was sort of made for this time. And this was in conversation about training AI models. We have so much documentation that we could really easily train a lot of AI models to be helpful for us, right? And somebody said that in a conversation. In a time where there's authoritarianism and populism sort of burgeoning, that our way of governing and our way of being together as a covenant community, I think is a really needed witness. And I think the way that we have talked about who God is for us and for the world and what God is doing in the world, I think is such an important witness. And so I think echoing Tony, if we can stop being so sad about looking back and really, dealing with our grief, but then also being able to look forward with hope. I think there are so many amazing things that can happen, and that there is something really good about what we can be as part of a larger body of Christ in the world. And I think the other part of it, right, is recognizing, and I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say this, right, recognizing that not everybody in the denomination agrees, right? We still have a wide variety of things that people actually believe and think and feel about a whole lot of different issues. And at the same time, the reason why, right, we also rely on General Assembly policy is because a council does get together to discern and say what it is that our witness should be in the world. And so I also encourage people to actually get to know the policies of the denomination if you're Presbyterian, right? Or if you're interested. Get to know our policies. It has some really, really important things about freedom of conscience and religious liberty and the ways that we actually come to sort of believe who God is, for human rights, for, in the context of this conversation about Palestine and Israel and what we think is really, right, sort of a pathway forward for God's wholeness in the world, for what it looks like to have honest patriotism in this time. What we believe about, right, how we need to actually stand firmly against Christian Zionism and also white Christian nationalism, all these different things that we have policies and I think opportunities and learning documents about us. I encourage people to get to know that.
Thank you. This is probably the most Presbyterian podcast I'm ever going to do of episodes. So just if anybody who's listening to this who normally doesn't get this stuff, don't worry. This is just the only 2 episodes that will get this. Let's see. My rant will be. I'm going to end with a rant. I am still pissed off at churches that talk about being with the oppressed and the poor and all the things. And I'm like, if you're not doing that right now, if you are not doing what you have said you are, if you're not being the church that you've been saying you are, that you say in your prayers and your songs and your sermons, I don't know what you're doing. But now's the time that's a choice not to be the church that you have been saying you are. And so do it. You got to be the church. Now, if you've been saying all this time you don't care about the poor and you don't want to feed the hungry and clothe the naked and visit the incarcerated, and then that's fine. But if you have been saying all that stuff, you need to get out there and do it. So there's my rant for you. All right, all. Again, we want to thank Presbyterian Peace Fellowship and Palestine Justice Network for helping to sponsor these 2 episodes, but also those are the places we can get resources. They'll be in the show notes. We'll give you links, and I would encourage you to join their newsletters, give them money, use their resources. There's all kinds of great stuff, especially around Palestine. Palestine Justice Network has everything you're ever going to need. If you wanted to have your congregations do any kind of study, if you want to just kind of get to know a little bit more, because you may feel silly asking, that's the place to go. So you want to make sure you take advantage of the resources they offer. So again, I want to thank the 3 of you for staying up late with me today. For those of you that are listening, you know what to do. Rate, review, do all the things you do a podcast. And thanks for joining me on Amalgamation. We'll see you next time. This podcast was hosted by Bruce Reyes-Chow, produced by Emmy Hicks, edited by Desiree McFarland, with music by Marissa Magdal Laron, and inspired by ancestors past and generations to come. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe to the Amalgamation newsletter at Reyes-Chow.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.